Manish Desai, a partner at Deloitte, is also going to be joining us. Mukesh, I want to discuss SEZs with you. With what has been put forward today, what is going to be the future of SEZs and tax incentives in the country?
Well, if you go by the proposal that has been put out today, it means that SEZs that come into operation after April 1, 2017 will not be entitled to tax holiday. And SEZs that are continuing to operate or come into operation prior to 2017 will continue to enjoy the tax benefits in the phased manner, which is 5 plus 5 plus 5, which is the original proposal under the law today. I just wanted to make one point. There have been past instances where phase out of exemptions have happened. The first phase out of exemption happened when the export profits deduction, which was 100% deduction for export profits that was available, that was phased out over a 4-year period. A plan was announced that henceforth 80%, 60%, 40%, 20% profits will be available for phase out. I think that is, in my view, a strict definition of phase out. Similarly, I think SEZ is an important source of investment. It's an important source of employment. And more importantly, it has also resulted in a greater degree of outsourcing activity into India, particularly in the IT-enabled services and research and development services.
Right.
So I think that SEZ developers and SEZ entrepreneurs are going to be extremely disappointed with this proposal, and people who have SEZ plans on their drawing board, and if for any reason they are unable to make their SEZ operational by April 1, 2017, will face a flag just in case this proposal goes through. So I think I'm just again re-emphasizing that a calibrated approach would have been better in this situation.
Okay, so let's bring in Manish Desai, partner at Deloitte India, also into this conversation. Manish, where do you stand as far as this draft proposal goes? We were just talking to Mukesh Bhutani, and he's of the view that just giving 1 year time for all of these exemptions is not enough, and perhaps it would be more calibrated, also partnered with bringing down rates, which is not, as of now, present in this draft proposal.
In my initial comments, I believe that what the government is intending to do in terms of the reforms and the intent made by the finance minister of bringing down the rates and phasing out the deductions, they have some seriousness to do that. So I think that's a positive step towards that. But on the overall, I believe at this point of time when our economy is in the need of having more investments in the infrastructure and in the other areas of deductions, especially in special areas, and even to foster more research and scientific development, the phasing out of weighted deductions for the research and development activities is going to hamper the development of Indian knowledge in that area. And also at this point of time of phasing out infrastructure related incentives would also kind of hit more capex and more plans for the Indian corporates to make investments. So I think an approach of phasing out the investments over a longer period of time would be more beneficial. So I think that may be a better approach that the government could kind of take this forward with.
Okay, so you're saying pretty much what Mukesh Bhutani was saying. Mr. Bhutani, this is a government that talks about having a simplified tax structure, not taking an aggressive stance. What I wanted to ask you was, have they made enough clear that if this was the policy that what we're looking at today, would it lead to more litigation, or have they made it quite clear that you get the benefits only when you start before 31st of March 2017, not just with getting the tax benefits, but even for depreciation? Could this increase litigation?
I don't think this will increase litigation. I think the proposal is fairly clear. I also think that from the government standpoint, phasing out of tax exemption was certainly on the cards. So a reduction in corporate tax rate could not have come about without the phasing out. The question is how it is to be done. I think that a long-term view needs to be taken. You will suffer a deceleration in tax collection in the initial years, but over a period of time, I think the tax collection figures will look good. But to your point, I don't see any of these proposals are going to enhance litigation in my view. Well, yes, to some extent, whether a particular infrastructure facility or SEZ did commence or start its operation before the sunset date of April 1,
Right.
2017 is concerned. I mean, that is there even in today with all the exemptions that are available which contain a sunset clause. But I don't think that this proposal is going to result in any enhanced litigation in my view.
No enhanced litigation. Manish Desai, I'm going to give you the final comment. You seem to be belonging to a camp that wants more exemptions and a lower tax rate.
I think overall, I think the government's trying to have an intention of having a tax regime which is having a lower tax rate is much easier to understand for the common man and to have lesser tax litigation, because as we know that many of these sections were prone to a lot of interpretation issues. So I guess on a going forward with the phasing out, the act would be much simpler to understand. We'll be having lesser litigations. So I think the government is looking with that intention, but it needs to balance it with to have foster investments to have our economic growth.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen, for taking the time out and joining us here on CNBC TV 18. There's reactions coming in for you from BMR and Deloitte on what they make of the roadmap announced by the government to phase out corporate tax exemptions. Public comments invited over the next 15 days.